Breaking news exclusively from Blue Eye Media. Now here's Harry J. Sisson with the latest updates.
All right, folks, check this out. We have some fantastic news to talk about right now. It looks like this White House and their regime is collapsing right before our very eyes because it appears that Donald Trump is going on a firing spree. Now, Donald Trump is not doing this. He's not removing people from their positions in the government because he thinks they did something wrong or because they acted improperly. No, he's removing them because the optics are bad for him. The polls are awful for Donald Trump. The American people, both Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, are turning on him over the Minnesota ICE murder that we all witnessed. And so he's cleaning house. And some high-ranking Trump officials, included in this article we'll talk about in just a moment, might be on the chopping block as well. People you see pretty much every day that are so annoying. So look, we're going to get into the story. Make sure to subscribe down below. Drop a like on the video. Comment. Let me know what you think about the story. If you're on Spotify or Apple, please rate the show 5 stars and follow along. It goes an incredibly long way. But look, I think there were signs that the Trump regime was getting ready to throw some people under the bus. I mean, earlier today, Caroline Leavitt was asked about the comments from FBI Director Kash Patel, where he said, you can't bring a loaded firearm to a protest. That's against the law, which, of course, it's not. It's so funny to watch the pro-2A people not know what the Second Amendment actually says and what courts have said. But this is what Caroline Leavitt said when asked about Kash Patel's comments. Watch.
Director Kash Patel said in a Sunday interview, quote, "You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest." Does the president believe the Second Amendment rights remain in effect even when protesting?
The president supports the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding American citizens. Absolutely. There has been no greater supporter or defender of the right to bear arms than President Donald J. Trump. So while Americans have a constitutional right to bear arms, Americans do not have a constitutional right to impede lawful immigration enforcement operations. And any gun owner knows that when you are carrying a weapon, when you are bearing arms and you are confronted by law enforcement, you are raising the assumption of risk and the risk of force being used against you. And again, that's unfortunately what took place on Saturday.
Man, she really struggled to get through that answer right there. She was walking this fine line of not endorsing what Kash Patel said, but also kind of defending Kash Patel or defending at least Donald Trump. But, you know, she didn't come out and say, no, Kash Patel's right. You know, Donald Trump stands with him 100%. They are somewhat distancing themselves from Kash Patel. But here's where it gets really bad in terms of throwing people under the bus. Kristi Noem was asked about Caroline Leavitt was asked about the characterization by Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, and others of Alex Pretti as a domestic terrorist or someone who was looking to kill ICE agents, someone who was an assassin. And, well, you just watch for yourself.
To follow on Gabe's question, Secretary Noem said Alex Pretti committed an act of domestic terrorism. Stephen Miller labeled Pretti a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with them?
Look, as I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Pretti in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts in the investigation lead itself.
Was he alarmed to hear his top officials referring to him in that way, rushing to that judgment?
Danny, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline.
Wow. And then she dodged the follow-up question when asked, you know, was he surprised to hear people like Kristi Noem referring to Alex Pretti that way? But they are completely distancing themselves from Kristi Noem, from Stephen Miller's characterization of Alex Pretti as a domestic terrorist. And again, I want to reiterate, they're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. They're not doing that because they've had a realization and they suddenly want to be good people. They're doing that because the politics are not on their side. They're looking at the numbers, they're looking at the shows, they're looking at the protests, just like you and me are. And they're not happy. And so they're making a political calculation here. And on this topic, in terms of Mr. Greg Bovino losing his job, but others, Bovino and some of his ICE agents are expected to leave Minnesota tomorrow. Not all of ICE, but some high-ranking ICE officials are heading out. And then we got this news, that Greg Bovino, the commander-at-large of the Border Patrol or ICE or Donald Trump's immigration operation, has lost his job. He's been demoted. They're cleaning house. They're distancing themselves from some bad comments. They're demoting people. They're cleaning house. Let's get into it. So, Gregory Bovino, I like to call him SS Bovino, has been removed from his role as Border Patrol Commander-at-Large and will return to his former job in El Centro, California, where he's expected to retire soon. So, look, my reading of this is not Bovino saying, oh, actually, I want to go back to California. I want to work a job and now I'm going to retire. No, he's being forced to retire. That's kind of what we're looking at here. It's not an optional, you're leaving. It's a you're leaving and you're not coming back kind of a thing. Bovino's sudden demotion is the clearest sign yet that the Trump regime is reconsidering its most aggressive tactics after the killing of Alex Pretti. Earlier today, Donald Trump appeared to signal in a series of social media posts a tactical shift in the administration's mass deportation campaign. Trump wrote that he spoke with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, whom the White House has blamed for inciting violence. They've also called for him to be arrested and tried for things like treason. So now they're shifting their tone very clearly, and the two men are now on a similar wavelength, according to him. Tom Homan, the former ICE chief, whom Trump has designated border czar, will head to Minnesota to assume command of the federal mobilization there as well. Here's where it gets even more interesting than just Bovino. So Bovino's out. He's gone. SS Bovino, his small stature, is out of there. He can take his Nazi coat and leave. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and her close advisor Corey Lewandowski, who were Bovino's biggest backers at the Department of Homeland Security, are also at risk of losing their jobs. Two of the people told The Atlantic. For the past 7 months, Bovino has been the public face of a traveling immigration crackdown on cities governed by Democrats. Noem and other Trump officials gave Bovino the commander title and sent him and his mass border agents to Chicago, Charlotte, New Orleans, and then Minneapolis. Bovino has become a MAGA social media star as he traveled the country with his own film crew, which is insane to think about, and used social media to hit back at Democratic politicians. In Minneapolis, the Trump regime used Bovino as its lead spokesperson, scheduling daily press conferences where he defended agents' rough tactics and cast blame on protesters and local officials. So you can see who we're talking about here. You know who we're talking about here. A total scumbag. I mean, he's made some of the more outrageous claims about what ICE is doing in Minneapolis. He said that Renee Nicole Good was a domestic terrorist. He called Alex Pretti a domestic terrorist, an assassin, and things like that. This is not a good guy. Bovino's fall comes 2 days after, just 2 days. So a pretty quick turnaround, not quick enough, after ICE agents fatally shot Pretti. DHS and Customs and Border Protection officials did not immediately respond to questions about Bovino's departure. Of course, they didn't. Asked about Bovino and Noem, a White House spokesperson referred to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's statement today that Noem has the president's utmost confidence and trust. Do you believe that? I don't know. I don't think so, especially since sources are saying that she and Corey Lewandowski could very well be next. And it's not that Donald Trump disagrees with what Kristi Noem has done or said. It's more that, again, it's the politics. Kristi Noem is toxic. She has said insane things about ICE, about American citizens, about immigrants, and the American people are turning on them. Look, most Americans want a secure border. This is what the data shows. Most Americans want a secure border. They want people to come in legally. They want border reform. They don't want what Trump is selling. They don't want people being abducted from their neighborhoods and picked up and disappeared in vehicles to go to an El Salvador torture prison. Most Americans don't support that. Matter of fact, most Americans are actually in line with Democrats who want to reform the system, make it more efficient, encourage legal immigration and things like that. And the people are turning against Donald Trump. So this is a disaster, at least the beginning of an impending disaster for Donald Trump and his regime. So let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. Make sure to subscribe down below. Again, if you're on Spotify or Apple, please make sure to follow along and rate the show 5 stars. It goes an incredibly long way. I hope you're taking care of yourselves in these very crazy times. It can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. So make sure to look out for yourself a little bit. But have an amazing rest of your day. We will talk soon.
Follow Blue Eye Media exclusive insights and breaking news sources from global-friendly outlets that you'll never get from the mainstream cable TV and antenna radio or satellite outlets. Learn how to play the flute of the world and learn the real facts.